Hi, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, depending on where you're tuning in from. I'm Livia Kent. I'm the editor-in-chief of Psychotherapy Networker magazine. And I'm here today with Tammy Nelson, Dr. Tammy, who is a licensed sex and relationship expert, host of the podcast, The Trouble with Sex, and author of a whole bunch of books. You should go out and read immediately. Open Monogamy, When You're the One Who Cheats, The New Monogamy, Getting the Sex You Want, Integrative Sex and Couples Therapist. Tammy is a powerhouse, a long-time contributor to the Networker, a long-time presenter at the Networker Symposium, and just an all-around pretty awesome person. So Tammy, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. That was so nice. It really does age me when I think about, oh my God, I have been around for a while. And I'm one of the old timers now. That's so weird.
You are an old timer continually on the cutting edge, which is awesome and something I really, really appreciate about you and your work. And I'll just dive into why we're chatting today, which really brings us to the cutting edge of the way the field is going. And you stepped through this doorway. It seems like pretty hook, line, and sinker. And let me just say what it is. We're talking about psychedelics. Specifically, we're talking to Tammy about ketamine and how that really adds to your work with couples. I'll just do a quick plug. Our latest issue of Psychotherapy Networker was on psychedelics and non-ordinary states. Tammy wrote an exquisite piece on ketamine and couples work. If the QR code is right above my head, if you want to read the article, there's also a URL down below. Tammy, we're here to talk about your piece. We're here to talk about what ketamine can add to couples therapy. And we may be making some people a little uncomfortable in the process because it's not quite yet common practice. How did you start to get interested in this?
Well, I did the MAPS, which is a multidisciplinary training program, psychedelic training program. I did the MAPS program on MDMA therapy, and that's not going to be legal for the next couple of years, although they're making a decision, I think in August, because it's been FDA approved. They just have to make it prescribable. Mm-hmm. And the ketamine was interesting to me because I'd never done it. So it was all new to me. And so I did the training with Polaris on how to do ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. One, because it's convenient. It's a short-acting medication. It's legal. It's safe. They give ketamine in surgery to babies at, much different doses. So I didn't really have any concerns about safety or sort of long-term effects, and you can do it in sessions, and it only lasts a couple hours, and people can, get up and go home. And, I was really intrigued by the capacity for people to explore their own internal narratives in a way that we've never really done before. I think psychedelics and all these new potential treatments are really helping us to look at our narratives around trauma, around intimacy, around relationships, and how to empower ourselves to do our own healing work. I think it takes a lot of pressure off the therapist, and I think it also takes us out of this privileged place of us having to have all the answers, because psychedelics really bring people to their own highest self and their own healing work, and helps them to decide that they have the answer for themselves. It's a whole new way of looking at therapy. It's really incredibly impactful.
It's really interesting, especially as you portray it in your article. By the way, if you've not done ketamine, I had not, and you want to get a taste of what it's like without actually ingesting it, read the beginning of Tammy's article. It's an incredible description of your first experience with ketamine, Tammy, and what that was like for you. And it's not boring. I was just sometimes when you hear about somebody else's psychedelic trip, it's kind of like, okay, I see that's really relevant to you, but this description really, really brings it to life in a way where you can clearly see its therapeutic relevance. So that said, I love how you point out that it takes us out of, as therapists, out of the role of expert, and it gives the client, which is where they always should be in therapy, but really that's where the healing lies inside of them, and they're able to access new layers of that. Where does that leave the therapist? What is your role as a therapist in that case?
Well, I mean, to put it simply, during the journey, you're a guide, but to put it more, from a clinical perspective, you really are helping people understand their narrative, the narrative that they have about their history, about themselves and their own identity, the narrative they have about their relationship to other people, to their partners, and to their future. You're helping people to really follow the paths that they are drawn to and led to. It takes away the pressure to diagnose or pathologize or help people come up with solutions. It really is more of a way to help them cross a bridge to a new understanding, a new vision of where they want to be. I think the role of the therapist is incredibly important because psychedelics aren't really that therapeutic in and of themselves without integration. This is not like a magic bullet that, you can get sent to your house and you're going to be cured. I honestly am a little concerned about that. But the real value is in the integration, the remembering of the experience, the reintegrating of the parts that have been split off or forgotten or disassociated. Like, really is about helping the person to integrate all of those parts of the self, to remember, to reintegrate, to feel whole, to feel like there's a new narrative about things that have happened or things that you believe about yourself. It's really powerful because it saves a lot of time, saves a lot of money, and it saves a lot of confusion for the therapist and for the client about what the actual goal is for healing. Like, what does healing mean, and what does a positive treatment outcome really look like? We don't have to decide, they can decide.
And it comes up through the journey. There's a case example in your article, which again, you can read going to the QR code that's floating above my head. It's on my screen, in which you offer this. So you do a retreat for couples, ketamine and couples retreat. Cole, if you want to put that in the chat, people can check that out. So a couple things that this brings up is, one, why do you find it particularly effective for couples work? Two, you talk in the article about the power of the retreat setting. People do use it individually in just a regular couples therapy setting, but you really feel like there's power in community and in the ritual. So let's talk a little bit about that and how that kind of takes couples work to the next level for you.
Well, I've always done couples workshops and retreats. This is the first year, this past year or two, that I've added ketamine. And actually, in the retreats that I'm doing now, we are welcoming in individuals and clinicians as well, even if you come by yourself, so that you can be part of the experience and understand what it's like. And if you're a clinician and you hear about it through this, you can come and we'll give you a 90-minute post-experience integration session, so we can explain, this is why we did this is why it worked, this is why we did it on this day, and this is why we dosed in this amount. And because I think the more we can understand how this setting works and why we would choose to do it in a retreat or a workshop, I think the more people can actually integrate that into their practice, whether you work with couples, individuals, or do retreats yourself. The power of a couples retreat, I think, particularly now at this point in our culture, coming out of the pandemic, is really about remembering how to be in relationship. And, you know, it's not that, even in like affairs or in open relationships or even making new friends, it's not that we look for another person, we look to be another person. And so in each of these other couples in this group, we are seeing parts of ourselves reflected, and we see other people's relationships, and we remember the importance of this particular relationship. And it really is incredibly powerful to see other people's process in the group retreat and how it affects each couple. And so some people, do really well in group experiences. Some people go off on their own and have their own couple, sort of private experience, but are held by the group. And I think we are all longing for that sort of village, that tribe, to be around people that you feel like you can relate to. That's a really powerful container for change.
Mm. And just so everyone is kind of has the picture, at least that I have, having read and worked on your article. With ketamine, you can control the dosage in a way in which you can still communicate during the journey with a partner, with a therapist. So, whether you're doing that or you're kind of in your own inner space and not communicating and doing that work afterwards, how is it? I know this is a bit hard to explain in words because it just kind of is, but how is it such a powerful pathway to intimacy and trust, which is really what the heart of couples work, maybe the heart of all therapeutic work, but let's talk about couples.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really important question because I think we're still trying to see what the longitudinal impact is for all psychedelic therapy, and particularly how to integrate it into couples and sex therapy. As a couples and sex therapist, I'm super interested in how we can use this for intimacy. And when I think about intimacy, I think about into me see. So you're really inviting your partner to experience your inner world in a way that is really unique. Because number one, you realize that you can never go totally into your partner's psyche. So you come out of a psychedelic experience and you try to go over the bridge and explain it to your partner in a way that does not include them in the experience. You have a separate experience. And that's important for differentiation and individuation, which you need, by the way, for good sex. And the idea that your partner thinks differently than you do and that their mind works differently, but also that there might be some understanding and some identification with sort of the symbols. It's almost like dream work, like what's going on in their brain might make some sense to you, but in a different way. So now you have a whole new world to communicate about. I was an art therapist too, and I had a license in registration as an art therapist, and I got a master's in art therapy years ago. So I'm fascinated with this idea of like imagery and the things that come up for people and the meanings. And so that's the first part. And then the second part is that it really changes people's narrative about their relationship. So there's three parts of that. There's the experience that they have, and then they have this new level of understanding about what it means, the meaning of where they put it into their lives. So particularly with ketamine, which creates this neural memory reconsolidation. So it shifts your experiences around in your brain and refiles them. It's almost like a new file cabinet. And so you're taking the history of your relationship and you're plugging it in differently. And then you share that with your partner and you together create this new vision of what it could be. So in other words, that argument that we had, the other day about cooking dinner now means something totally different than it did the other day. And it really is like almost like going through a car wash with your partner and shaking things up and looking at them differently. Now, can that be effective for all couples issues? I think part of it is dose related, like you mentioned. There's a psycholytic dose where you're pretty present for each other and you can talk during it. And you have these sort of insights and awareness that you can share. And then there's the psychedelic dose that is a very internal, private, independent experience that you then have to come out and talk about. And it's in that integration with each other that sort of bonds you, because that is the into me see part that can change everything, actually.
Mm. And there's a part in your article that really sticks with me, in that you bring up a couple that was in one of your retreats, and you very nicely describe how the ketamine retreat changed their relationship. The integration from the ketamine retreat changed their relationship. And then you say, could we have gotten there through talk therapy? Could we have? And you say, yeah, definitely possible. But it would have taken years, likely. Mm-hmm. And that is if one of them hadn't become frustrated and dropped out or ended the relationship, or, any of the other things that typically happen over the course of couples therapy. So this really was kind of the quick, for them, not all couples, as you point out, was the quickest point from point A to point B being a new level of intimacy, into me, see, for them. So that, I mean, I don't know, you have me sold, but there are some risks that you do mention. And how do we make sure as a field that we're keeping those in mind and mitigating them?
Well, I think it's important, number one, like you said, it can be a faster way to do some of the work. And there's a sort of two-edged sword here about accessibility. So if you don't have the time or the money or the resources to come to therapy on a regular basis, doing a workshop with psychedelics can make it more accessible. But people who can't afford a workshop also feel like this is not accessible. And so it can feel a little bit privileged for people. I think for now, it might be that way. Like, it may not be accessible to all for a time being, although that's changing as people with resources, therapists with resources, offer these kind of things with sliding scales and make it more doable for everyone. The other thing is we have to also, approach with caution. There's a lot of venture capitalists that are opening, ketamine clinics that use IV, that I don't have anything against, but don't offer the psychotherapy needed for integration and for processing, which I think is of concern. And so I think we need to really work as an integrated team if we're doing this work. I also think that people need to know ketamine is an addictive substance. Like, if you are doing this on your own and getting it shipped to your house, which is a possibility now in this industry, that you have to be cautious. We're not doing this recreationally. But there is a risk. And, we call this the Matthew Perry effect. Like, there is a risk of overdose. There's a risk of, what happened with Matthew Perry is he did a astronomical dose way beyond what we would ever prescribe for someone and sat in a hot tub. And this is a dissociative chemical that takes you out of your body. So you need to be lying flat somewhere safe with cushions around you, with people watching, so you don't get up and fall down until it wears off. So the fact that he was in a hot tub is just very contraindicated, let's put it that way. So we need to be cautious about people's accessibility as well. And so I'm not like waving the flag of this is going to change all people's lives. However, I do think that with the right safety and the right consistency, this can change couples therapy. And I think the point that I want to just, leave people with is we have to provide a safe container for people to go that deep. It's like any psychedelic journey, you're really going so internally and taking such risks. You want to know that the outside world is safe while you go so deep and internal, just like any therapy, right? That's what we do. And this is just a little bit more time focused and intense.
Thank you. We're almost wrapping up. Just a few. I'm just going to go over a few quick plugs, and then Tammy, you can have the last word here. If you want to get a really beautiful window into this work and Tammy's perspective on it, you can read the article. URL is on the bottom of your screen, or there's the QR code. It's really stunning, and it's embedded in a larger issue on psychedelics. And where we are today with psychedelics in terms of the field of mental health. So there's an interview with Bessel van der Kolk in there, Gabor Mate. I think it's a pretty good issue.
Very good, very good.
If you want to subscribe to Psychotherapy Networker, it's $5 for the whole year, and you can have access to 40 years of clinical content brought to life in the most engaging way we could possibly imagine, with authors like Tammy. And if you want to learn a little bit more about Tammy's Couples and Ketamine retreat, Cole, you want to put that URL down there? You can check that out. Maybe we can put it in the chat too, so it's easily accessible. Tammy, what am I missing? What do you want to make sure people walk away with as they really digest the possibility of how this might be able to change their work, or even just become aware that this is happening? You don't have to offer this to your couples, but you should know that couples are doing this with therapists.
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage people to come to a retreat, like come this September, or come to a workshop that I'm doing, or go to a training. There are opportunities to learn through immersion by doing it yourself. Ketamine is a legal substance. MDMA will probably be legal next year, and psilocybin the year after. Sort of like the medical marijuana field, it starts with prescription and diagnosis, and we'll see what happens in the field. I'm hoping that if you're curious, you start by observation and education, and that you are careful about who you refer, that you think it will really benefit from it. And like I did, try it first in your own relationship and see what the results are. I think this is a very clear results-oriented part of our field that is measurable, and there's a lot of research. So, all the FDA trials and all the new research that's coming out now is accessible, and I'm happy to get it to you. If you want to email me at tammy@drtammynelson.com, I'm more than happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you. And just one more plug for your article. If you want to read about Tammy's first experience, go there. Check it out. Thank you so much, Tammy. It was, as always, a pleasure to hang out with you, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Thank you.
And thanks, Livia, for being so brave and cutting edge and encouraging this and opening the conversation. You're the best.
We do want to open conversations, and right back at you, Tammy.